They still talk about that draft class, the glossy magazine covers, the ESPN highlight reels, the endless hype videos counting down the next faces of the league. And then there was him. Not the headline, not the cover boy, just a name buried halfway down the recap, mentioned in passing as a versatile scorer who might surprise. In high school, he once dropped 30 points without breaking a sweat, yet nobody remembers the box score, only the dunk contest from the kid ranked number 1. In college, when the crowd rose to its feet, it wasn't for the closer off the bench who sealed games, but for the future lottery pick who airballed twice before hitting one clutch three. His family clipped the articles anyway, circling his name in the tiny subtext, telling him, "Look, you made it in the paper." But even they knew the spotlight was always somewhere else. Draft night was the perfect metaphor. The cameras swarmed the green room, flashing lights on the top 10. Suits, jewelry, Instagram posts, hashtags, future franchise saviors. And then, an hour later, the commissioner read his name at the tail end of the first round. Applause, polite smiles. "Steal of the draft," the analyst said, like a compliment wrapped in caution tape. He shook hands, held up the jersey, but deep down understood. This was not the grand entrance of a star, this was the quiet introduction of a piece. Everyone enters the league dreaming of being a starter, an all-star, a centerpiece. But the league doesn't care about dreams, it cares about roles. From the very first step, his was already being defined. Not the future of the franchise, not the poster boy, not the guy they build around. He was the afterthought who would soon become the safety valve. And that's where the story really begins, because sometimes the worst cages are built not out of failure, but out of quiet competence. They called him a spark plug before he even understood what the nickname meant. Not a star, not a starter, just the guy you throw into a stale game when the crowd is yawning and the scoreboard is stuck. And suddenly, the pace flips. He scores in bunches, the bench jumps up, the arena wakes. That's what a spark plug does. It doesn't power the engine, it just jolts it back to life. In the history books, there were others like him. Jamal Crawford, crossing defenders into retirement. Lou Williams, cooking starters and second units alike as if defense was optional. Manu Ginobili, the rare legend who embraced the role by choice, making sacrifice look glamorous. Those names became banners, cult heroes of the bench. But for every Crawford, every Ginobili, there were dozens of players just like him. Too good to ignore, too replaceable to promote. The coaches loved him. The front office loved him even more. He was reliable, professional, never complained. In their eyes, he was the perfect patch for every crack in the system. Need scoring? Throw him in. Need energy? Send him out. He filled gaps the way duct tape fixes leaks. Cheap, efficient, temporary. And just like duct tape, no one ever confused him with the foundation. Outside the court, though, the truth was obvious. His face wasn't on posters downtown. No billboards, no sneaker deal, no interviews with dramatic lighting. He walked through airports without a single fan stopping him for a selfie, while his teammates, some shooting 4 for 18, signed autographs in the next terminal. Spark plugs don't trend. They just keep the machine running. And that was the irony. The better he played his role, the deeper he sank into it. What started as a stopgap became his identity. The role that was supposed to be temporary hardened into something permanent, invisible, and unshakable. But cages like that never announce themselves. They disguise as compliments. "We need your energy off the bench. You're too valuable in this role." At first, he smiled, grateful. Later, he realized it was less about what he could be, and more about what they needed him to stay. And that realization lit the fuse for the next chapter, where praise begins to feel like a prison. On paper, it never made sense. His efficiency numbers, PER, true shooting percentage, points per minute, all ranked higher than the starter in front of him. Yet when the ball went up, guess who trotted out with the lights down and the music up? Not him. The franchise face always got the rope. Draft pedigree, salary, shoe deals, they were the invisible stats that mattered more than any box score. The unfairness gnawed at him, but only because it was so blatant. A starter could go 4 for 18 and still log 35 minutes. He could drop 18 and 20 and still be yanked at the 6-minute mark of the second quarter. It wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about brand management. And the mental toll? Brutal. Starters had the luxury of warming up, of finding rhythm. He had to arrive like an explosion. 2 dribbles or less, score or sit. No mistakes allowed. If he missed twice, he was streaky. If the starter missed 10, he was due. It mirrored corporate life more than sports. The overqualified middle manager who plugs every hole but never gets promoted. Too indispensable where they are, too risky to elevate. They don't become executives. They become safety nets. Reliable, invisible, necessary. The cruel part was how the numbers backed the story. History is littered with sixth men whose advanced stats eclipsed starters, yet whose names never cracked an all-star ballot. Efficiency became a curse. It proved they could thrive in chaos, but also gave teams an excuse to keep them there. He knew it, everyone knew it, and that knowledge hollowed him out, because every big night, every instant offense explosion, didn't push him closer to the starting lineup. It welded him tighter to the bench, and that's the paradox of his career. The better he became at proving he belonged, the more evidence they gathered that he should stay exactly where he was, which set the stage for the next realization. Sometimes, the most dangerous praise isn't "you're a star," but "you're perfect right where you are." The cruel irony was that he wasn't trapped by failure. He was trapped by success. Too effective off the bench to ever be trusted with more, he had fallen into what front offices quietly call a value trap. In the cold calculus of the league, why experiment with him as a starter when his very existence guaranteed stability? If he moved up, who would be the spark when the game sagged? The excuse was always the same: chemistry. Coaches preached it like gospel. The rotation works. Don't mess with what's working. It sounded noble, but what it really meant was, we don't want to risk losing our duct tape. And duct tape, after all, is cheap, versatile, visual, and invisible once applied. From the economic angle, the math was even harsher. Here was a player producing starter-level numbers on a bench-level salary. For the franchise, that was a jackpot. Why pay $30 million for a starter when you could squeeze nearly the same output for half the price? To the team, he was the ultimate bargain. To him, it was a prison. Manu Ginobili is often held up as the shining example of the sixth man, an all-time great who willingly embraced sacrifice for the sake of San Antonio's dynasty. But there was a difference. Manu chose the role. This player did not. His sacrifice wasn't heroic, it was mandated. He didn't step into the shadows to build culture. He was pushed there because the system decided it was more convenient. So the compliments piled up, each one another chain around his ankle. Too valuable to change. Essential in this role. What sounded like praise slowly revealed itself as the bars of the cage. He was no longer evaluated as a basketball player who could grow, only as a tool designed to preserve the structure around him. And in that, the paradox hardened. The better he became at proving he was more, the more permanent his ceiling became. Which is why, by the time he hit his 30s, the question had shifted. It wasn't, could he escape the role? It was, would he ever stop believing escape was possible? By his 30s, the story no longer felt like a climb. It felt like erosion. His body reminded him every morning, stiff knees, ankles barking after back-to-backs, the ice packs that had become more ritual than remedy. He learned to ration his bursts, to conserve energy the way veterans save money. Carefully, reluctantly, with the quiet knowledge that the well isn't bottomless. Once he fought. He asked for starts, pushed for more minutes, treated every scoring run as evidence that he deserved the stage. But the longer he stayed, the more the resistance dulled. His rebellion softened into resignation, not out of lost passion, but out of recognition. The system wasn't changing, and neither was his label. What made it worse was the generational gap staring him in the face. A rookie with a 40-inch vertical, no jumper, and no clue on defense was gifted 28 minutes a night because potential sells. Meanwhile, the veteran, efficient, consistent, proven, was trimmed to 19. The math wasn't about production anymore. It was about hype, future ticket sales, and hashtags. And beyond the numbers, there was the solitude of the role. He wasn't a star bathed in ESPN highlight reels, nor a forgotten bust who vanished quietly. He lived in the strange middle, too valuable to discard, not valuable enough to immortalize. In airports, no one stopped him for selfies. In locker rooms, he was respected, but never celebrated. A spark plug, even in veteran form, still lived in the shadows. He spent nights in hotel rooms with ice strapped to his knees, scrolling past his own highlights, posted late, barely noticed, while watching younger teammates enjoy their arrival moment. The spotlight wasn't his anymore, and the truth was, it never had been. And so the question shifted. It wasn't, when will I finally get my chance? It became something bleaker. Do I even want to keep believing that chance exists? Which made the next chapter inevitable. Not about battling for more minutes, but about confronting what it means when the calls eventually stop. The difference showed most clearly at the end. Superstars left the game with farewell tours, jerseys exchanged, gifts from every arena, standing ovations stretching for minutes at a time, their names echoed through highlight montages, their faces etched into murals, their numbers rising into the rafters. And then there was him. No farewell tour, no commemorative video packages. One summer, the phone simply stopped ringing. No press release, no ceremony, just silence. 15 years of buckets, and the league moved on as if he had never been there at all. That's the brutal economy of the NBA. What have you done lately? Longevity without virality means nothing. A rookie with bounce and hashtags will always outshine a veteran spark plug whose best trait was consistency. The league doesn't sell steadiness. It sells spectacle. After retirement, the divide widened further. The stars became TV analysts, brand ambassadors, legends enshrined in the hall. He didn't get that call. No signature line, no studio job, no speeches about legacy. He slipped quietly into everyday life, his name fading until it survived only in forgotten box scores and dusty trivia nights. It looked like erasure, and in many ways it was. No statues, no banners, no endless storytelling of the night he took over. Just the echo of minutes played, points scored, games won, none of which made him unforgettable. And yet, there's the hidden twist. Maybe this kind of career, the silent, dependable, invisible one, is the true backbone of the league. The stars lit up the sky, but he and players like him built the ground it stood on. They were the scaffolding that held everything in place, the ones every team needed, but no one remembered. Which leaves the final question not about his absence, but about the league itself. What happens when the foundation it forgets decides not to exist at all?